Good afternoon. Nowadays, people ask me, why on earth do you work in politics? They used to ask me, why on earth do you work in advertising? And I can say that when I came out of the London School of Economics, the choice was a bit binary. You either became an accountant or you did something else, and I didn't want to become an accountant. And when I went up to the careers office, I found this rather dusty pile of prospectuses from the likes of J. Walter Thompson hidden away. Found them and actually thought this was exactly the industry that would suit me. It was an industry that absolutely thrived on a meritocracy. It thrived on creativity, and actually it thrived on making Britain a great place to live and to work. I learnt in my almost 20 years in advertising and marketing the power of ideas and the power of creativity. And that is what I bring to the job that I've got today. And I think it's an important mark that for the first time we have a culture secretary that actually has a background in advertising. You've already heard today from companies that advertise and agencies that create ads and the media in which the ads appear. And clearly the government has a really strong interest, and I think a really important role to play in the success of all parts of that chain. And there can be no doubt that value of advertising is strong and here to stay. It's a driver of investment, it's a driver of tourism, it's a driver of growth. And yes, this government needs to see growth if we're to see Britain to be successful in the future. I believe it's absolutely vital that we help the advertising industry to maximise its impact on our economy today, whilst losing none of that incredible creativity which makes British advertising so successful. And I really want to talk today to you about what we can do together to help make sure that we realise that huge economic impact that advertising can have. And I really have enjoyed reading the Deloitte report, and I think it gives us a great deal of food for thought. It won't surprise you to hear me say that the biggest problem facing this country and this economy is growth. And it was interesting to hear some of the debate in the previous section about that. But let us be under no illusion. We have a country at the moment that has spent too much, that has borrowed too much. We need to get our country back on track, and growth is part of that equation. And in our department, in the Department for Culture, Media and Sport, it isn't just the Department of Fun, but yeah, we have a lot of things we do which are very much valued by people in this country. But I believe with the creative industries, we are at the heart of helping put this country back on its feet. And I firmly believe that we need to look at another direction other than just manufacturing or the financial sectors to boost our economy. I absolutely believe that the creative industries like advertising have an incredible role to play in building the economic success of this country in the future. Now, as a government, we estimate that advertising contributes around £6 billion to the economy, a sizable proportion of the £36 billion value of the creative industries. And I have to say, ahead of television, ahead of film, and more than design and architecture combined. And Deloitte's report looks deeper at this and asks, what is the wider role that advertising plays in the economy? And I think the report comes up with an even more impressive answer, which is that £16 billion of annual expenditure on advertising in the UK, which adds £100 billion to the UK gross domestic product by raising levels of economic activity and also boosting productivity. So far from being a drain on the economy or in some way sidelining people, we're actually in this industry helping to boost the productivity of others, such an important part of the future economic growth of this country. And in other words, according to Deloitte, for every £1 spent on advertising, £6 is generated for the economy. That's a great multiplier effect. But more of all of that in a moment. Reading those sort of eye-popping figures, it struck me that a really significant part of what makes our ad industry so successful all over the world is its very Britishness. whether it's Burberry reaching out to our new markets in Russia, Hong Kong, or India on YouTube, or the international computer giant Acer choosing a British agency, Mother, to create its exciting new European campaign, harnessing the power of the latest animation technology. The UK is leading the world still. We lead because of our history, our culture, our arts, and because of what the world associates with being British. There isn't any better example than what we did last summer, when Britain was marketed to the world through the Olympics and the Paralympics. Global brands come to Britain to get the best market for their products, and Great Britain brands gain a global market through the strength of our advertising talent. This adds up to an export business for advertising services worth at least £2 billion a year. And this doesn't include the huge value advertising adds to the economy in terms of selling Britain abroad, as a great tourist destination and a great place to do business. And many of you may have seen the Great British campaign that the government is currently running to bring that home to more people abroad. And I hope it's clear that I'm absolutely proud of the ad industry in this country, the impact that it has on our economy and our reputation abroad. And I'm determined to be a champion and a cheerleader. And I think one way to do that is to identify what gives us a special British advantage and challenge you to maintain it. I'd argue that a key part of the domestic and international success of the British ad industry is that it reflects our unique culture, the industry's direct connection with our diverse UK population, and a culture of openness and tolerance, which allows us to work creatively with people around the world. Now, I expect the strong tradition of self-regulation to continue too, but that you also play a part in upholding the UK ad industry's worldwide reputation for amazing creativity, which is also decent and honest. What's really eye-catching in Deloitte's report is their claim that increasing spending on advertising leads to a beneficial impact on GDP. So advertising, I think, should be the oil in the machinery of a recovering market economy. The levers work in a number of ways. You all know this. Advertising promotes innovation and differentiation within a market. I learnt that through 15 years of working with Procter & Gamble and Mars. It drives price competition. It encourages overall market growth. It funds media in the creative industries, and it supports a wide range of employment. Deloitte's put the number of jobs supported through advertising at more than 500,000. It's clear that advertising has a significant potential part to play in the future growth of the economy. And the challenge I put to you today is, how do we make sure we fully unlock that potential? Now, I was pleased to see in the IPA's 2012 census that of nearly 20,000 people employed in UK ad agencies, 50% are female. And I know, having worked in the industry, that women get ahead in our industry. I was slightly more concerned by the fact that women only occupy a fifth of senior positions, and it might not be bad compared with other industries where women are really lucky to find a seat around the board table at all. But in a world where the majority of advertising is aimed at women, is it really sustainable to have most of that created by men? I think there's a lot more work to be done there to make sure that we retain that critical British advantage. I know that some of you feel there's potential for the government to offer more help to small and medium-sized businesses. And as a government, we are absolutely committed to ensuring that SMEs get the best possible chance to do business. But I need to hear more from you about what we can do to support that. Others may feel what you really need is better access to, say, consumer data. It's absolutely crucial that we strike the right balance there between the protection of consumers and the ability of businesses to use data to deliver products and services that people want. And I know we face real challenges with the EU data protection proposals, and I will continue to work hard with my Ministry of Justice colleagues to make sure that we approach this in a way which reflects your concerns. but we must ensure that the impact and the practical effect of the current proposals is clearly understood, particularly amongst other member states. And if we can achieve this, I'm confident that we will actually have a data protection framework that will work for you as business and also for consumers. Now, one of the things that I loved about working in advertising was the feeling that we were both feeding off and driving creative and technological innovation. And in my view, advertising, like many other creative industries, is an important landmark in the UK's cultural and artistic landscape. The creative talent that makes Britain a breeding ground for great films, great television, amazing special effects, and wonderful music is the same creative talent that inspires and makes our advertising. Would Tom Hooper, director of Les Miserables, be the toast of Hollywood today without his grounding in ads? The same could be said of others, perhaps Sam Mendes, talents that have come out of the advertising industry. What's more, the benefits flow in both directions. The advertising industry is absolutely critical to funding the creative industries and promoting them to as wide a market as possible. Again, the Deloitte report has shown that the UK cinema box office would have lost out on £300 million in 2010, 27% of total revenue, without advertising getting audiences through the doors. Almost 30% of TV revenues still come from advertising. And as David Abrahams showed this morning, broadcasters like Channel 4 still have a symbiotic relationship with their advertisers. Yes, one that's changing and evolving, but still as critical as ever. And more than 2/3 of newspaper revenue still comes from advertising, and over 500 local and community radio stations around the country are supported by advertising. The creative industries are at the heart of the economic revival of this country, at the heart of economic growth, and they are an important part of what makes Britain unique. They inspire investment and tourism and growth. I hope I've outlined the crucial role that advertising has to play in that creative industry. In conclusion, I'd like to say again how seriously I take the role that advertising has in our country, and the points that I make about the importance of advertising to the economy may not be new, and perhaps the argument simply hasn't been put strongly enough or loudly enough in the past. But then you haven't had a culture secretary with an advertising background in the past. And believe me, we need to make sure that we're supporting you, not just now, but in the future, in the critical role that you play in the future growth of this economy. And believe me, we need you to deliver. Thank you.
Time for questions? Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Maria. It's great. Welcome back. Thank you for coming today and for advertising in such a persuasive and committed way. We really, really appreciate it. So we've got time for probably 2 or 3 questions. So if we could take the lights down so I can see who's asking them. Yes, one there, Lindsay, and then one at the back. Lindsay.
Hi there. Yes, it's Lindsay Clay from ThinkBox, which is the marketing body for commercial TV. I wanted to ask you about the forthcoming communications white paper. Usually the ad industry can be forgiven for doing a sort of collective eye roll at that point, because you'll remember from your own time in advertising, we do tend to get scapegoated with all the ills of society. So I wonder if you could reassure us that we've got nothing to fear this time around.
I think it's important to acknowledge that the creative industries are moving fast in this country, and that we need to make sure that whether it's legislation, regulations, or actually just the way we're supporting the industry is not just good for today, but is good for the future. And that's what a white paper can cover. It can cover the way we're thinking about communications, not just for today, but in the future. You can take it from me that what we'll be doing in any work like that is looking for the way that government can support the industry to grow, or support the creative industries to grow, to support a communications sector that is changing not just by the year, not just by the month, but it feels to me like by the day, to future-proof our approach to communications in a way which I think everybody in this room would expect us to do. And certainly, we want every part of the creative industries to play their full part in that, so it will be very positive about all aspects of the industry.
Thank you. Question at the back. You got a mic? Can you speak up a bit, Andy? We can't hear you. Yeah, a bit louder. Thank you. Now, mic.
Technology. Andy Hart from Microsoft. The advertising industry's main asset is talent, but both this industry and I guess our country is now competing globally. What can the government do, what can you do to help to ensure both that we develop the best talent, retain the best talent, and also attract the global best talent to keep growth going?
Yeah. So I think the most important thing that we can do for any employer, and it's the same whether it's advertising or outside, is that you have people who are there who have good skills, strong skills, whether that's before university education or after. And I think the reforms that Michael Gove is putting in place to make sure that people have strong literacy skills, strong numeracy skills, is important for every employer in this country. But you're right, it goes further than that. It's making sure that we have the sort of creative talent that is nurtured as well. So the work that we're doing around particularly apprenticeships and opening those up to more than perhaps the traditional apprenticeship skills and plumbing and electrician, but opening that up more broadly. And certainly the creative industries seem to be embracing that very strongly, primarily because they can actually then train those young people with the skills they will need for the future in the industry that they've chosen. So I would urge everybody in this room to be looking at how apprenticeships can actually help augment the talent that you have available. And then the final point I'd make around the international scene is, it's important that we have good controls in place as to who comes and goes in our country. I think that's a pretty universally accepted idea. And there's no way that what we've put in place would stop good people, not just from coming to the UK, but for staying here as well. I think that it's important that people still have that ability to move around globally. And many of the clients that I've had over the years really rely on that to nurture and grow their talent. And certainly that is very much at the heart of our immigration policy and our immigration controls. And we fight very strongly to ensure that remains in place.
Time for a couple of quick ones. Andrew?
Thank you. Andrew McGuinness from BC McGuinness Bungay. Specific question on education. There's much pressure, I think, and desire in the creative industries generally for the arts to be included in the EBAC. Will you be lobbying in the Cabinet for that?
The EBAC, for those of you who may or may not follow these things closely or indeed be intimately involved in it, as I am, because I have 3 children, one of whom's going through GCSEs at the moment. EBAC is all about getting quality into our education system, making sure that young people come out of school being able to read and to write, to put a real focus on the academic subjects in our schools in a way which hasn't been the case for too many years. So we've had a situation where in the past we've seen a halving of the number of young people doing academic subjects at GCSE level, leaving us with some of the problems that I know you as employers have been facing with some of those basic skills. So the EBAC is about putting that rigour back into our education system. It isn't about excluding creativity from children's lives. That still is very much there, both through the English curriculum that children will be following, but also the EBAC is only the equivalent of 6 GCSEs. There's still enormous space in children's lives to be able to surround that with many other of the things which we would see as being part of a top quality education, whether that's music, whether that's drama, whether that's the arts. But you can be assured that not just from your industry, but from the creative industries and also from our arts and culture sector, we're making sure that that's really a message very clearly sent home to our schools.
Great. Any last questions before we thank the Secretary of State? Last one then, right in the middle. Hard to get to with the mic.
Well, you see, I'd be showing my age if I said what some of my really, really favourite ads are, and I think they're ones that capture your emotion, capture your heart. At the moment, it would have to be the John Lewis ad, which I have to say, I saw it and I bit my lip because I think it really touched a heartstring. But then it probably did the same as some of the ads I remember back from my time in the advertising industry. And I'm old enough to really have fallen in love with things like the Levi's ads back in the 80s. And I think for me, that's the best of British advertising, the sort of advertising that captures your emotions, that tugs on your heartstrings. And that's why I think we've got the best advertising industry in the world.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Maria Miller.